Thank you for having me. Oh, there we go.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
You care a great deal about cities. They're always part of your films, be it Rome, Paris, New York, LA. What is your first impression of Bologna?
I came to Bologna in January, actually, during the lockdown. And you had just turned yellow, so I could come visit. And I was lucky enough to have a tour of the Cineteca and the laboratory. Well, first of all, Bologna, I just loved. I love all the porticos. I love the design of the city is so romantic and beautiful. But then when I saw the Cineteca, I was overwhelmed. It was such an emotional reaction for me. Just the way that people care here about films, about the art and craft, about the history was truly, truly touching.
But then you had your own Il Cinema Ritrovato in London, Ontario, didn't you?
I started early on. I was living in a small city in Canada where we had no access to great movies. We just got all the American things, and some of them were good and some of them bad. And but I wanted to see some of the great movies of the world I'd never seen. I had no film education. So I started my own film society and started booking 16mm prints of great movies and not knowing anything about them. And I'd say, oh, Ingmar Bergman, I wonder who that is. And I'd get the film. And it was just such an incredible education, especially in the French New Wave and the Italians at the time. I just had no idea. It really was remarkable watching those films and not having access to them prior. Excuse me, there's something really annoying here.
What is it?
I hear...
That's the simultaneous translation into Italian.
Keep going. Keep going. So you've got it in the ears, have you?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's marvelous. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Terrific. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Keep it up.
So what were the films which made the strongest impression on you when you were doing your film society?
Blow Up. I mean, please, Blow Up. I saw this film. I saw Antonioni. I said, I just have to move to England, become a fashion photographer. That's what I took away. I wanted to go meet Vanessa Redgrave. But no, the way that a story could be told, the way he told that story, and then, of course, that was the very first of Antonioni's films I saw. I saw many after that. But the way a mystery could unfold, and the way that you could present no answers, just more questions in the end was. I didn't know what to think. I was troubled. I was excited, and I wanted to see more.
And was it for you like more in terms of the importance was more in terms of writing or direction?
I wasn't even thinking of that then.
Right.
I was just a fan. I was just, I wanted to write, and I wanted to make theater at the time. And I was doing very bad productions. I was writing plays that were just awful, and getting wonderful actors to do them, and it was and getting some of the worst reviews in the history of theater in Canada, and I just loved it. And so I really wasn't analyzing the films in that way. I was just watching them and admiring them and letting them flow over me, which you need to do with these films. You have to just live inside them, and that's what they were allowing me to do.
Right. And I was thinking that if instead of, you mentioned that you moved to England, if instead of moving to Hollywood and making films there, if you had stayed in England, do you think you would have been a different filmmaker?
Well, I wasn't in England, I was in Canada. I mean, if I'd stayed in Canada, no, I would never have. I was working in construction. I would never have done it. It was my father who prompted me to move to Los Angeles and try. And so I went home. I was 22 years old. I proposed to my girlfriend. I said we were moving to the States, to Hollywood. I was going to be a writer-director. She thought I should be a doctor or something. I was a high school dropout. I didn't think a doctor was going to work out for me. So we packed up the car and moved. And I worked as a furniture mover there for 5 years, illegally, until finally I sold something.
And when you moved to America, what did you think of perhaps before even moving there, the films which are about writers in Hollywood? I mean, all the titles from Sunset Boulevard onwards, and recently Mank. Were they kind of accurate?
What was the last thing?
Mank.
Mank, oh yes, which I loved. Mank was an incredible film. Yeah, I mean, The Player. There's so many great films about Hollywood, and writers sometimes play a central role, as they did in Sunset Boulevard. Usually they're pretty pathetic at that point. But no, there was so much romance of the cinema for me in Los Angeles, and you had to really look for it. I mean, because it's such an ugly town, Los Angeles and Hollywood, truly ugly. But you'll find this little place that, oh, this is where such and such a person met such and such a person. This actor met this director. And of course, the next week they tear the damn thing down. I was there when Schwab's was still there. And of course, they tore it down to make an awful mall. But, where Lana Turner was supposedly discovered. And my father and I would go in search of, I was a big Preston Sturges fan, and I know he lost all his money investing it in a club called the Players Club, and I went in search of that, which had closed years before. So you were constantly in search of things that no longer existed, and that was that's Hollywood. It's something that doesn't exist. It's all in the mind.
Speaking of another writer, scriptwriter, and another film about a Hollywood scriptwriter, Dalton Trumbo. So much in Hollywood has changed since the 30s, 40s, and 50s in terms of the political engagement of the writers. I mean, they were in the forefront of many interesting things and many interesting movements, and eventually they also became the victims of regressive movements.
Yes.
And you are also a person who is pretty much involved in social causes, in politics. Yes. Does Hollywood actually care about politics these days?
No. Hollywood is incredibly self-involved. They pretend that they're interested in causes, but they truly only are interested in what everyone else is involved in. I've been protesting in the streets since the Reagan administration, and we invaded, some Central American country. We were always invading somebody, and you couldn't get anyone out there. No, they were all too worried about their careers. But if something becomes popular, then they all jump on board. Maybe perhaps I'm a little cynical. There are good people. There are really good people like Susan Sarandon, who are out there. Tim Robbins, who show up for everything. But there are very few people like her or Sean Penn or just a handful of others you can name that really put their time into things. Mark Ruffalo is one, for example, Martin Sheen, who just don't give a damn what happens to their career. They speak out, but you could name maybe 10 or 12, and that's it.
I've seen you many times saying "we" when it comes to situations like this.
Yeah.
So you could easily say, "Oh, I have nothing to do with this. I'm Canadian."
No. As soon as I move someplace, I take on all its sins. So when I moved from Canada to become an American, I took on all America's sins. So that's why I had to do something about it, to protest against our various involvements in various foreign wars. Or I have a small piece of art I bought years ago. It's just 2 frames. It's a greeting card that an artist drew. And the first one's a very cheery watercolor, and there's a plane, and there's something falling from the plane, with the sun coming up behind it, and said, "Sorry, our government bombed your country." And then the second card inside, it says, "I want you to know I was against it." And so I think I could send that greeting card to many, many people around the world, because we're always bombing somebody. No, Hollywood doesn't care about that.
Right. How long did it take for you to sell your first script when you arrived in the States?
Years, many, many years. I'd written many bad screenplays, many bad sample scripts, and then I finally sold something to television. I'd optioned a few movie scripts, but thank God they didn't get made. They were awful. I think I finally got a pitch on, I think it was Love Boat. And I finally got a pitch on there with my friend, and we sold an episode. That was 5 years.
Usually we have very little clue about working in television. How's it like working in television in America?
It's a factory, and I loved it, because getting a chance to be a working writer is just such a blessing. I mean, I was literally a furniture mover. That's what I did. I broke my back carrying pianos up 3 or 4 flights of stairs. So you suddenly can make a living with your computer, your typewriter, your pen. It's amazing. It doesn't matter what you're writing. So I wrote a lot of, questionable television, but I became, I became a success by failing my way upwards and slowly becoming a better writer. But God forbid, I mean, some of the things I wrote in the beginning, the producers, they must have had real patience with me. It took me many, many years to write a decent script.
When people talk about you, they call Crash as your debut feature, which is not true. You have another very interesting film before that.
Well, it's not true. I shot a film. It never was released. It went out on television or something, and they cut the film without me, so I never got to finish it. I've never actually seen it. But I know that they cut it from, it was a big epic, 2.5 hours long. They cut it to 90 minutes without me, so I've never seen the film. I took my name off it. I don't know if I took my name off it. I tried. I tried to take my name off it. I think it's still on there. But no, I've never seen it.
Well, I have seen it, and I find it quite interesting
Oh,
because you went to Latvia only 2 years after the fall of the Soviet Union.
That was fascinating, going to Latvia right after, it was actually, we scouted there as soon as the wall fell. It was an amazing place to be. I was one of the first Westerners to be inside the KGB offices in the prison, and that was stunning because we went out into the backyard, which they called the exercise area, which is a penned-in area, and they lifted up the grate for me, and I saw all the spent bullets that were in there. It was an execution area. They just brought people down there, shot them in the head, and so if there were a dozen shells right in the drain, you could imagine how many people were executed there.
Yes.
It's fascinating. So yeah, I loved being that part of history and being there. I wish I'd had better producers.
But for that film, you also worked with 2 great actors, and after that, I mean, you were really lucky. Always great stars and
Carla
wonderful
Gugino
actors.
was wonderful, and Balthazar Getty were in that.
And Armin Mueller-Stahl.
Armin Mueller-Stahl, oh my God, who I just love. He's amazing. I loved working with, and Donald Sutherland was in there. So I was lucky to have some wonderful, wonderful people. Yeah.
That film is also interesting for me because it shows from very early on your relationship with music, which is very special because you use music in your films in many different ways, and it seems that you really care for that art form.
Well, it is one of the major elements in telling a story, right?
Right.
It really does, and you see it misused all the time. I see people send me their short films, and they're just sort of wall-to-wall, music and overly romantic or overly dramatic, and they're trying to tell the story completely with the music. Just listen to the music then. Don't bother projecting anything with it, because it just destroys whatever you were trying to do. People become insecure, I think, about their filmmaking, and therefore they want to try and compensate by using music. But when used correctly, I mean, Mark Isham did a great job in Crash. Danny Elfman in The Next 3 Days. I mean, there are so many wonderful composers I've gotten to work with. Dario did a great job on The Next 3, on third person, Dario. And so now I'm very blessed to have worked with some wonderful composers.
Do you consider yourself a rock and roll person?
Oh, I love rock and roll, of course. That was my era. I was proud of that, yeah.
And I believe your film company is
Highway
a rock and roll.
61. Well, Highway 61, my company's name is Highway 61 Films, or just Highway 61. And I was looking for a name, and so many of the names are taken already. And so I was thinking of the story of Robert Walker and him selling his soul to the devil for his talent. And hold on, who did I say?
Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson. Yeah, I thought so. It was a rocker I got in my head. Yeah, I was thinking of Hitchcock. And my God, Robert Johnson. Sorry, and he sold his soul to the devil for his talent. And I went, okay, well, I might have done that. So I decided to call my film after that decision. And then also, Highway 61 is a highway in America. It's gone now, but it was a highway that divides America. And so my films are pretty divisive. So, but if you look really closely, you'll see in the logo that's spinning, there's subliminal frames of the devil in it.
Oh.
Yes, so you have to watch really closely for those. Yeah.
were you forced at any point to sell your soul to the devil?
I always fear that I will. I always fear that I will. And so I haven't, that I know of. But then once you sell your soul, you don't probably know. The devil gives you amnesia or something. So I don't know, but it is my greatest fear.
Right. Yeah. You have said many times that you cannot write in a room. You know, the classic image of the writer in his solitude or her solitude. You have to go to a coffee shop,
It's not true. I often say things that aren't. No, at the moment it was true, but I go in waves.
Right.
I do like sitting in coffee shops. I had to move out of Los Angeles because after the Oscars and things, I was too recognized, and so I could never get more than a sentence out in Los Angeles before I was interrupted. And everyone just says, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And I go, "I'm writing." I go, "Yeah, it'll just be a minute." And they sit down. I'm in a thought, and then they leave, and then 2 minutes later, someone, "Hey, do you have a minute? Did you notice the last?" Anyway, so I just moved. It was easier. So New York people don't really give a shit about you for the most part, and they leave you alone. I especially like writing in Italy because no one knows who I am, so I can write in a bar all day long. I love doing that. But of the last couple of years, I just sat at my dining room table and wrote, and I was very happy doing that. I need to have something. It's strange. For the writers here, I don't know if you have the same experience, but I can't write facing a wall. I have to have space in front of me. And it doesn't really matter what that space is. So I sit at my dining room table. I've got this little office. I can't sit there, so I sit at my dining room table because there's space I can look out at and you can feel it. What I like about writing in cafes or bars is just all the ambient noise that goes around. So you fool yourself because you feel, I mean, you're alone. I write 8-10 hours a day often. And yes, I'm a human being. I start to feel lonely, but I just keep pushing through. Because my characters need my time and attention. And so in a cafe or a bar, you can fool yourself into thinking that you're still part of life, still part of humanity. It's just annoying when humanity approaches you, but it's keep humanity over there. But yeah, so that's what I like about them. And that's what's great about writing in Italy, because I said, people will leave you alone.
Right.
I don't know who you are.
And when you write in solitude, do you listen to music while writing?
I started listening to Moby years ago, long before I met him, and I liked his music for a number of reasons. One, I'm a huge fan of his, always have been, and he's a real genius. But also, after a while, you know what the lyrics are. They have a repetitive nature, and so you don't stop to listen. I can't listen to Leonard Cohen, for example, because I love his lyrics so much. I want to stop and listen no matter how many times I've heard them. But Moby has this way of embracing you and hiding his intent. What's so interesting is he just released a new album, and I ask you to all immediately buy it. It's called Reprise, and he's taken, I think, 10 or 12 of his great songs, and he's done them with an orchestra, someplace I forget where in Europe. And even with an orchestra, suddenly it's much more intimate, the experience, and you really understand what he was saying, how much pain he was in as an artist, as he was doing songs that we thought were dance songs. It's extraordinary. Reprise, a great album.
Before this event, there was the screening of a documentary here about Eduardo De Filippo, Italian artist, writer, director. And he was talking about a very interesting concept, colors, the color awards. So approaching. So what do you think about it? Are you a straightforward person? For you, words are what they are, representative of solid ideas, or more impressionistic?
Why we like words is because they have so many different meanings. That's why we love them.
Yeah.
And that's why I only speak English, because if I tried to speak Italian, I would come up with the obvious meanings for each word, and while you guys would be laughing or this, and I'd be going, what the hell are they saying? Because you'll be able to twist the words around. I know how to do that in English, but I can't do it in another language. And if you can't manipulate the language, I feel awkward. I love being able to play with words. And that's when you're writing. You do that. It's the best when you can find something that means two things at once. Or better, not even the words, the sentences. I love hiding important things in humor and planting something. And if you watch $1 Million Baby in the Square in a couple of days, tomorrow I guess.
It's tomorrow night, yeah.
there's one line in there which just goes right by. Well, first of all, there's a scene I love, which is two men sitting around talking about socks. And that was the one thing that everybody said, oh, you got to take that out. And I went, no, I'm never taking that out. And when Clint got it, he said, no, I'm not taking that out. Thank God for him. But it's two men talking about whether they should buy socks or not. And if they gave him money, would he actually buy the socks or spend it on alcohol? I love the scene. But there is a scene late in the film, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but in which Clint Eastwood's character tells Hilary Swank's character that they're going to finally go for the title shot. They're going to go to Vegas, which is what she's always wanted and what she's been trying to resist because he wants to protect her. And finally, he's accepted this challenge, this title fight, and he's going to take her there. And he hasn't allowed her to make any decisions up to this point. He's very grumpy. He makes all the decisions, you know. And so he said, okay, do you want to fly there? They're in Los Angeles. Do you want to fly there or drive? And she goes, I get to make a decision, boss? She goes, just shut. Which one do you want? Shut it, fly, or drive? And she goes, I want to fly there and drive back. And he goes, oh, Christ, women, whatever. You know, it's just something completely illogical. What you don't notice is that, yes, they fly there. And yes, they do drive back in an ambulance, you know? So you plant those things. It only entertains me, the writer, to know that. And one person who will pick that up somewhere. But that echo of something, you know, this said in humor that later on has such tragedy wrapped around it. That's the way I like to manipulate words.
Before getting to Million Dollar Baby, there's another question about the writing process that I wanted to ask, and it's about your relationship with literature. I mean, do you go and consult books? Say, let's try a page of Dashiell Hammett or Dostoevsky.
You know, I didn't have an education. I was a high school dropout. I was a bad kid in many different ways. So I never got a classic education. I barely made it through high school. So all the reading that I've done over the years is just things I've picked up. Oh, Dostoevsky, I wonder who he is. And I'll start reading. And so then I'll fall in love with a writer, and I'll read a lot of that particular writer, and I'll go into other waves. I mean, there was a period where I'd read nothing but science fiction, you know, and I was in my teens. I'd read Asimov, I'd read all these incredible writers. Then I went through that. And so there are writers who greatly inspire me and have greatly inspired me. I'm struggling to write my first novel now. I'm talking really struggling because I'm not a real writer, and I don't say that with humility. I say it as a fact. There are writers, and then there are screenwriters, and screenwriters are very valuable, and often writers cannot write movies. I mean, novelists, just forget about them. They usually bungle their own movie. But we think a certain way. We construct sentences a certain way. So when I decided to write a novel last year, I knew it would be hard. I had no idea how hard. But I'm loving it so much because I'm failing so often. I fail and I wake up in a cold sweat and God, I've failed this, and shit, I ruined that. And I throw out a whole patch of it. After thinking it was brilliant the night before, I throw it all out and start again. The writers, most writers resent rewriting. They hate it. They hate getting notes. They hate the rewriting process. I love it. I love it because I get to live my life with my characters for a little longer. I get to interact with them. And I mean, I love my life, but I love what I do. I love escaping into that world, whatever world I've created, and and testing these characters and seeing what they do. And often they will do things that completely surprise me. In this book, they just went nuts. I had no idea this woman was going to do this, and this woman was going to do that. And I went, oh my God, you're fabulous. You can be my new protagonist. So I love doing that. Too few writers embrace rewriting, and for the writers in the audience, I really suggest you examine that. The reason you do is because secretly you think that you've done the best you possibly can. And if they criticize it and tell you to do better, it's not going to be as good. It's not true. Writers should have endless ways of telling stories. you should always be able to get better. You should always find a better sentence, a better moment, a better way to twist this scene or to twist that character, or honestly, a better way to test your characters, because things are never bad enough in a story. You should continually make them harder and worse for your characters. Hopefully, if you do that, you don't have to do it in life. But so I would tell you to embrace that. What often happens is that producers or friends or people who read your script will give you the wrong kind of notes. They'll say they'll try to be your friend by solving your problem, and 99% of the time they'll be wrong, but their note will be right. Or even if their note is wrong, where they're talking about in the script, there's a problem. So look at it. Often the problem is before they've pointed out. So I go back before, and I go, okay, why is this scene not singing? Why is it not working? Page 2, I made this decision, and it's an arbitrary decision. Why did I decide to do that? Let me change that, and it'll make page 9 or page 24 much richer. So yeah, but don't ignore notes.
Does it happen that you care about a certain character so much that you think you can redo the whole story from a new point of view, the point of view of a character, which was not the original point of view of the story?
I've done that. Absolutely. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love that. You fall in love with characters, and they aren't the ones you plan to love. You plan out, I'm going to love this guy and this woman. And you go, but this person with 2 lines is much more interesting than that person. And no, it happens all the time. Characters crawl into your head, and you change things around. You have to be open to do that. You have to allow your characters to come to life. And once they do, you can herd them here and there, and you have to. As a writer, you sort of go this way or go that way. But ultimately, if you don't listen to them, you're going to have a dull story.
Right. You deal with characters who are very real, but how does it work out when you're working on someone like James Bond? You're doing a James Bond script.
Oh, yeah. That's a funny story. I had just finished, I think, Crash, $1 Million Baby, and I'd taken a house in Umbria for the summer, for a palazzo, and invited all my friends for a month, because I was married at the time, and my wife was always at me that I never took vacation. So I said, okay, a month. We're going there. We'll invite all our friends. And so we did. And we got there, and the first week I got there, I get a call from my agents and said, Paul, they're interested in you writing the next Bond movie, Casino Royale. And I went, they are? Yes. I said, they've seen my movies. They said, yes. Crash, $1 Million Baby, they've seen these films. He goes, Paul, I think they have. They know who they're calling. I said, do they understand that if I do Bond, I'll ruin it for everyone forever? And they went, Paul, I think they know. So I was fine, I'd love to. Okay, I'll meet them. They said, okay, we're going to fly you to London. They want to meet you in a couple of days. I said, I don't want to be an asshole, but I promised my family that I'd spend this month with him. I can't pick up and leave. And they went, Paul, they're going to pay you a truckload of money. I went, I know, and I don't want to be an asshole, but I can't go. Hang up. They call me back. Okay, Paul, the producers and the director are willing to fly to Rome to meet you. I said, that is so generous of them. I'm not in Rome. I'm in this tiny town, like 3 hours from Rome. They said, Paul, I went, I know, I'm an asshole, but I can't leave my friends and my family. I can't, not this month, I can't do it. They call me back, okay, Paul, they're flying to Rome and they're going to drive in to see you. Would you read the script? Of course I'll read the script. So they had a script, and I read it. And it was the same guys who'd written all the ones up to the point, and they're decent writers. They're good writers in some things and not in others. And this was not a good script. And so they arrived, and I can be such an asshole. I can really be an asshole. So they sat down, and they said, so what do you think of it? I said, well, your script has many sins. Only one of them is unforgivable. You don't have an Act 3. Would you like one? Such a prick. Such a cocky bastard I am. And they said, yes, what would you do? In their version of Casino Royale, which was good, it was very, very close to the book. In their version, after the torture scene, and there was a torture scene, there was some things that were quite good, Bond and Vesper sail to Venice. Bond then leaves her in the hotel and goes shopping or something he's doing. And then comes back to find her dead on the bed. She slit her own wrists. And there's a note that says, watch the TV. So Bond then picks up a DVD or a VHS or something and puts it in the TV and watches Vesper's talking head explain the entire plot. What's happened, this thing, I did this, I betrayed you, this is the reason, and there's a really bad guy, and he's across the street in the bank right now getting the money, go kill him. Bond then runs, looks out the window, sees the man, the bad guy with the patch or whatever he's got, runs out, chases him into a sinking house, and kills him and the other bad guy who were with him. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, here's the thing. Vesper has to be in that sinking house. He has to realize, if I'm going to do this, this is a man who has never loved anyone. Not true. He probably did early on. And he's had his heart terribly broken, and he's taken this armor and he's wrapped it around his heart, and no one is ever going to get through that armor, or no one's ever going to pierce it. And this woman does. And then, so that woman, the only woman who's ever gotten through to him, he's going to discover has betrayed him. And I said, and that reaction, his reaction is going to be, he's going to want to kill her. And he's a murderer. I said, so he's going to go after her to kill her. He's going to find her with these guys. He doesn't give a shit about the bad guys. He doesn't give a damn about the money. He wants to get to her to fucking kill her. He's going to chase her into a house with the other bad guys. He's going to get rid of the bad guys to get to her. She's going to lock herself in something, and he's going to realize he can't save her. And he's going to try, and she's going to kill herself, and he's going to be haunted for the rest of his life because he couldn't save this woman he was about to try to kill. They said, how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, go away. And so I started, and I wrote Act 3. I wrote the ending. I said it to them, and they said, good, what about Act 2 and Act 1? I went, okay. So I pushed this other thing after, and I wrote Act 2. I said to them, they liked that too. So then I said, Paul, I said, I'm shooting something. Fine, okay. Took another 2 weeks, and I wrote Act 1. I wrote the entire movie backwards. And I had some great help. Martin Campbell, wonderful director, already had certain scenes set out, like the opening scene. Martin had that in his head. I didn't have to do anything. But there were other action scenes I had to come up with in that. It was such a great experience. And Martin is wonderful because he would not change one word of my script. No, what writer doesn't love that? Not a word. And the producers would argue with him and sat and he'd go, nope, not changing it. They then asked me to write the next one. I didn't want to. They made it irresistible. I wrote what I thought was a better script, but the director decided to rewrite it. And so, to me, it's not as good. So, it was very successful, but it was good.
And did you make that truckloads of money?
Yeah,
truckloads.
Okay. Truckloads.
Well deserved.
Truckloads.
So, let's get back to $1 Million Baby and Clint Eastwood. From outside, you look like the odd couple.
Aren't we? I know. And he's such a sweet man. He's such a good guy. I am a little left of Mao with my politics. I'm so over here, and he is, notoriously conservative. I love this man. I would do anything for this man. He is such a great artist and such a great human being.
Was the script written for him? Or?
No. I wrote it to direct myself. And then, in fact, but the producer I was working with, I optioned it under the understanding that I would direct it. I wrote it. We took it around. He kept trying to get Sandra Bullock to do it, or he kept trying to get Nicole Kidman, or he had a long list of actresses that he wanted who were what he called bankable, even though they weren't believable as fighters. And, Sandy might have been, but the others not so. And I kept going, no, I want Hillary. And he hated Hillary. Later, he claims to have loved her. It's not true. He's just not bankable, can't use her. But I wanted her. And he knew Morgan, so he got Morgan on board early on. And then I got Crash going for the first time. I got a little bit of money to make Crash. And he said, what about Clint Eastwood? because at the time I wanted Paul Newman. And he said, Paul Newman's not a star. I said, I'm sorry? He said, yeah, he's not a star. I said, his name is Paul Newman. He said, yeah, not a star. This is Hollywood thinking, right? Anyway, so I wouldn't send it to Paul Newman because he wasn't a star. So he said, what about Clint Eastwood? And I said, he's great, but he's going to want to direct. He went, oh, no. He sent him the script. I don't think he ever told them there was a director attached. So Clint read the script, called, and said, it's great. Can I direct it? And I said, let him fund his own goddamn script. No. The producers then came to me and said, Paul, you know that little bit of money we were giving you? It's gone. Either Clint directs it or it's gone. I went, shit. Fuck you. Leave me alone. I'll find another way to do it. Then my agents came to me and said, Paul, if Clint Eastwood makes your script, it will make your career. I went, and then my wife said, don't be greedy. You're already directing Crash, which was a tiny little movie. We never thought it would make anything. Don't be greedy. Let him do it. Then I watched Unforgiven again, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I went, he'll do a great movie. Yes, he can do it. It was a great decision. He did a great movie.
Before getting to Crash, the Pacific War duo film that you did after that for Clint Eastwood, that's also very interesting. Again, back to the idea of different perspectives.
Yeah, I did two of them. I did Flags Are Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. And I was very happy to do those both with him. His mind works in a way. He wanted me to adapt this book, big book. I didn't think I could do it. And it was a very funny story because he calls me and says, got this book, want to send it to you, can't offer it to you, I got to talk to my partner first. My partner, Stephen. I go, okay. So I call my agents, good news, Clint's offering me this book. He just needs to talk to his partner, Stephen. They go, Clint doesn't have a partner. I go, they all ask around. So he calls back a week later, yeah, Stephen likes you, so can we meet? I said, great, love to. Stephen who? He said, Spielberg. I went, I'm not meeting with one icon. I got to meet with two. So I know I'm not going to get this job because I've read the book. It's impossible to make. It's this thick. It's a great book. It's impossible to make into a movie. So I know I'm not going to get the job, but I'm meeting Clint Eastwood and Steven Spielberg, right? So we go to Steven's office, and I bring a tape recorder because I want evidence that I was here, right? I said, do you mind if I record this? They go, sure. Put the recorder down. It's the most amazing thing because the first half hour, they completely ignore me. He talks about the first time he met Fellini, and this one talks about the first time he met Orson Welles. And I never get to me, guys. Just please keep talking. I'm not even here. Just ignore. So finally, Stephen turns to me and says, so, this book, what do you think? I said, it's a great book. I think I have about a 10% chance of making it into a script. Says Stephen. Okay. So we talk for a half an hour about it. Mostly they talk, say really interesting things. After a half an hour, 45 minutes, Stephen turns to me again and says, so, what do you think now? I said, now I have an 11% chance. So we leave. I don't know that he's calling Clint going, who the fuck is this guy with an 11% chance? So Clint drives me there in his pickup truck and drives me back to the studio. And I say, Clint, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how to figure it out. And he goes, you will. And he lets me go. And he just tells Stephen, yeah, he'll figure it out. He's shooting $1 Million Baby at this time. Every week I go to the set to tell him, I can't figure it out. It's too big. I can't do it. And I get my friend Bobby Morris to go to come in. I get my daughter Alyssa to come in. We're all tearing it apart. How do I do this? It's too big. Every week I go, and every week he goes, I say, I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. He just keeps going, you will. The guy won't let me quit. So after like 4 weeks, I get an idea. I go, oh, I could do it that way. So I go and tell him, and he says, yeah, I told you. So I wrote it. It was great working with him. And then in the middle of doing this impossible script, he calls me and goes, I'd like to tell the story from the other point of view, too. I said, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm doing one already. So I got an Asian American, Japanese American writer to help me, and she did, I thought, a very good job.
So at that time, you had done $1 Million Baby, going on the set of $1 Million Baby, doing the two films, and you were also working on your own film at the same time?
Yeah, in the Valley of LA, yes.
My goodness.
Yeah, I was very lucky.
So you said Crash was a small picture. What do you mean by that?
It was a small independent film. We had big actors, But everyone did it for free, basically for scale. We had very little money. We had very little time to shoot. It wasn't a Hollywood movie. Nobody wanted this. They turned it down for 4 years. I walked around Hollywood with that script for 4 years. Same with $1 Million Baby. Nobody wanted that. We finally got a little bit of money from an independent producer to do it. And every time I turned around, we had less money. We had to get so many name actors in order for him to sell it to foreign, because no one believed in it. So yeah, no, it was a tiny film that was being made with, I mean, they're big name actors, but they were coming on as if they were nobodies. They were being paid SAG scale. And we all did it out of love. So no one expected anything of that.
And now after Red Hot, which was not a very happy experience, and you never saw the film. In this film, you work with many actors, and you have many plots and subplots in it.
Yeah.
How did you manage to
I have no idea.
pull it out?
I wasn't a very good director or a very skilled one because I hadn't directed that much. I was just passionate about it. So somehow the actors put up with me, and we shot it very, very quickly. So I was just great. It was just what John Huston would say. The way you make a great movie is just cast good actors. Was
its success a surprise to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was very slow build. It was like a very slow build in the theaters, and I had no idea we were going to be nominated for an Oscar. I tried to talk them out of an Oscar campaign. I thought they'd embarrass me. I told them, and if they went for an Oscar campaign, they luckily didn't listen to me.
And the idea for using different characters, many different characters.
I just came in my dreams. I dreamt about all these characters and seen them, and I'd seen them in Hollywood. People like this, that TV director, I'd seen him eat his soul, to keep his job. I'd seen so many of these people. And being an outsider, being a Canadian, I'd always knew something strange was going on here. And the others would go, no, there's nothing strange. I go, there's something strange. And so, yes, seeing this, and I just wanted to make it was important for me not to point the finger at obvious bad guys and say, oh yeah, those are the racists over there, those guys. We know who they are. In America, they're in the South, and they're villainous, and they do villainous things. I went, I don't think that's the real racist. That's not the real problem. It's a real racist, but not the real problem. I think it's in our hearts. I think it's ingrained in us. So I made the real villains, the liberals in there, who thought they were such good people, but had that racism still in their soul and their heart. And I was very surprised that Hollywood embraced that, because I was calling them all racist.
Because
maybe they didn't understand.
Yeah. So what is kind of painful is the fact that you watch these films and you're hoping, okay, like looking at a film about the Nazi invasion of Poland, and say, oh, this is something in the past. But when you look at your films, especially in the Valley in this film, again, these issues have returned to the surface. Yeah,
they just keep coming back. In fact, we just did an interview about this with the Hollywood Reporter, and I believe it was LA Times or Hollywood Reporter at that time said, the reason we don't like this film is because we don't have these problems anymore. So nothing has changed, they said. Paul Haggis thinks nothing has changed since the Rodney King incident. And I went, yeah, nothing has changed, and it will change. But liberals hate thinking that. Everyone loves to think that they've solved all these problems and can feel good about themselves. Mm-hmm. No, we've done shit. We've just pretended to solve our problems. We've dressed them up.
Yeah, that's very true. And not only about America. When I was watching The Crash again 3 weeks ago, it was the England versus Italy match, and then when they lost, all those abuse on social media on the black players of the English team, it was unbelievable.
Isn't that? It's just they celebrate you 1 second and tear you down the next, just because you're their hero, and then you're the cause of their loss. It's just disgusting. But that's who we are. That's who we are as human beings, and that's why I say we a lot, because I'm no better than any of them.
Right. But it's, again, in the Valley of Elah, and when the U.S. troops pulled out of Afghanistan a few weeks ago, again, it became like, God, what's going on?
Yeah. No, I made that movie because I wanted to stop a war. I mean, that's what the kind of hubris we have as writers, and things that, I'll go stop a war. Didn't work out that well. But we got to try, Artists, we have to try to do something.
Do you agree that that film is, in a way, even more radical than Crash?
Oh, it is. It is. Absolutely it is. I was vilified for that movie. The flag at the end of the movie, Americans fucking hated that. Liberal Americans hate that. They said, oh, it's such a cliche, it's this. No, it's just making you really uncomfortable, is what it is. People never go, listen, I'm a racist, and this is why I don't like this film, or I'm a ultra-radical right-wing patriot, and that's why I like this film. No, they criticize it for, oh, it's not realistic or something. They never come straight at you.
I was working with Tommy Lee Jones. He completely destroys me in that film. He's just
He
marvelous.
is a crotchety old bastard. And luckily, so am I. I've been one since I was 20 years old. I'm just a miserable son of a bitch, and so is he, so we got along great. He was wonderful to work with, and a pain in the ass. And he'd say the exact same thing about me, but boy, I'd work with him again like that. He's brilliant.
Right. And you, in that film, In the Valley of Elah, some of the scenes, they look almost like black and white in color.
I just started dialing two things. I started desaturating the film very slowly as it went through, and you bring it back up only when he has his realization. Plus, I added more grain. Every 20 minutes or so, I added more grain to the film, so it becomes more documentary style.
Was it Roger Deakins who shot that picture?
Deakins, yeah.
So there's a scene in that film, and this is a film we are playing tomorrow at Mast. It's a scene which actually taught me that Paul has seen his persona. So it's a scene that Susan Sarandon and Tommy Lee Jones go to the... and, the way you block the eyes and the way you block the lips.
You don't think consciously... Listen, I'm
I was
ripping
so
off Bergman.
conscious.
I don't think of that. Oh, I'm doing Bergman. You don't think that because, but it's just those films, they affect you so much so early on, you can't, and so hopefully he'd forgive me.
Is it fair to say third person is closer to you in terms of the character you are? At least you're a writer.
Yeah, no, that was me trying to figure out how to love this woman who I just couldn't love. I couldn't figure out a way to love, so I put it in 3 different ways that 3 different men try and fail. But there was also a puzzle because I wanted to say, you like testing yourself, and you go, okay, what's your test? What's the 2 most important things for you? Because you always have to find 2 things, right? I went, okay, love, art. My art, writing, whatever that is. Okay, just to be glib, those are my 2 things I love. Okay, all right, choose. You can only have 1. Choose. Make it hard. The love of your life. Or a great story. Choose. I went, oh, fuck. Fuck, man, Menage. I'm just like, no, don't make me make that choice. Because, I know I would probably choose the love of my life, but god damn it, a good story. Oh, a good story. It's like ask a painter, do you want to be able to do that? Or do you want, So I decided that he would do what he had to do. But yeah, it was, someone tells you a secret. It's just too good. It makes too good of a story. But it was a puzzle, that one too. I loved, as I said, I was so influenced by the French New Wave and by everybody, the Italians, the Spaniards, or everyone who were making such really interesting films. Well, all these guys at the time. And so it was my poor homage to them because I didn't want to make a film that had easy answers. I wanted you to go out afterwards, like I did, after watching these films, and have to ask your friends what the hell it was about. And then you confirm it. Was this going on? Was that? And that's the kind of film I wanted to make. The answers are right there. Very funny because when everyone asks me, okay, what actually happened here? I say, what do you think happened? Then they will tell me exactly what happened. But they're too scared to say that's what it was. Right? And I go, yeah, that's what happened. But I won't tell you, but if you I'll confirm it for you. That film, I knew Americans would hate. I spent 5 years writing it and trying to get it made. And I knew Americans would hate it. And I was right. The reviews, I think, I'm going to be kind to myself and say that 90% of the reviews said, well, go the other way, first of all. 10% of the reviews said, this is a masterpiece, this is brilliant. 90% said, this is the biggest piece of shit of all time. And I went, yeah, okay, I divide people, very good. But, it is a film I'm very, very proud of. It's one of those ones that you go, yeah, okay, I did what I wanted to do. I made this little film that the French called the movie Puzzle, and I think that was probably appropriate.
It's a very open film, and I was surprised to see to Americans, the way they reacted to it.
They like simple solutions. They like simple things. They like to tell you everything. The Americans, Canadians, we're all very simple human beings. We're like men times 100. We're like simplistic times 100.
Am I reading too much into that film when I feel that you are, as a writer, you're accusing yourself of certain things and you defend yourself, like random characters making excuses of you for your life?
Of course. Yes, that's what you haunt. Of course, yes. I accuse myself of things every goddamn day, and absolutely, especially of betraying my art, betraying this. Oh yeah.
But it's more like a dialogue, a conversation with yourself, asking, answering, finding solution or not finding.
Yeah, luckily I have the dialogue. I can have the dialogue on the page, which just saves your life, because if you couldn't, I'd just be a crazy person walking around talking to myself all the time. Right. So luckily I can have the dialogue with the characters. I can make the characters explore things that I'm too afraid to, or things that I don't want to get there. I'm doing that now. You go, okay, maybe this is you. Because I always like to take the worst of myself and my things and try to project them onto the screen and say, you know what? What if you are this manipulative son of a bitch? What if you are that? Well, I don't think I am, but yeah, okay. Let's just say this woman was right. I go, but she's not. Yeah, but let's say she is. Shit. Okay, write it from that perspective. I like writing. Whenever I put myself in the film, I am the worst of myself. I am the Brendan Fraser character in Crash. It's always that little tendency in yourself to sell out or to do the expedient thing. And I go, oh, I really want to do that. I really want to take the money and do that. I have never done it, but Christ, I want to. Christ, I think that I, attempted at times.
You have something very rare in your films, very rare among North Americans, and that's your understanding of eroticism.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I think I do.
Third person is a very
erotic film.
Yeah,
You're right. It is. There's some really nice.
I mean, because sex scenes or erotic scenes in American films are so embarrassing.
That particular sex scene came to me the night before I had to shoot that. I didn't know how I was going to shoot that scene. It came to me the night before. I went, start with the feet. And it was just have them lie this way, because I thought they'd be awkward, so they'd be lying opposite each other in bed. Because that's what you do. You want to, you're the guy, you have to share a bed on someplace there. You put you let her take the pillow, you lie the other direction. There's no, and you just have a conversation that way. And then she just reaches there and touches your foot. And it's like, oh my God, I could shoot that from here. I could have them come together. Oh my God. Because there's no nudity in that I recall. There is passion. And that's what a sex scene should be. It should be passionate. Doesn't care. You don't care what body parts you see, for Christ's sake.
Of course, yeah. Why erotic scenes in American films are so bad?
Well, because they try to be erotic. I wasn't trying to be erotic. And I was actually surprised when you said that. If you try that, of course it's going to be forced. It's like you try to impress the woman with this, this suave thing. No, you can come off like an idiot,
So I have one more question about constructing your narratives, like the network you create, especially in third person. It gets, for me, most interesting. Of how do you write them separately and then try to?
Well, you never know. Crash, I didn't. Crash, it was all about following these people until they met this person and what happened. I kept saying, what happens when they interact? So even though I knew certain segments I knew certain characters, I didn't know how they were going to interact until they met. And then when they met, I said, okay, now I have to test what just happened. If I just show this person to be heroic, how are they cowardly? If I just showed them to be cowardly or horrible, how are they heroic? Because I wanted to say that we are the heroes and the villains in our own life. There aren't these people that we point to and go, those are villains, like we love to do in America. Those are bad guys, and we're going to go clean them up. George W. Bush, the evil empires. Or some of our even worse presidents. Can you imagine we have worse presidents than George W. Bush? How the fuck did that happen? I didn't think we'd get worse than Reagan. I mean, we just keep America, my God. Anyways, sorry for that. That's why I was almost kicked out of the country. But yes, so I wanted to say in this case, no, we are the heroes. We are the villains. It's complex. Life is terribly complex. And here's this thing, this theory I developed. Because the nice thing about being a writer, you can come up with these bullshit theories, and you get to test them. So I said, we're in a theater. We're all in a theater here. The lights go out. The projector explodes. Fire rains down. The fire exits are back out there. We can't get out. Smoke starts to fill this room. What the hell do we do? Well, you look, see this guy here? See how big he is? See how strong he is? See how handsome he is? He's going to stand up, and he's going to be the guy who organizes everybody, rallies everybody, and gets everybody out. No, sorry, don't know you, but you're being the guy who's going to leap over the person, push the pregnant woman aside, and get out by yourself. It's the pregnant woman who's going to stand up and save everybody. That's the person you least expect. In a crisis, you never know who the hero is going to be. You don't know who the villain is going to be. We don't know who we are until we're tested. And that's what Matt Dillon says to Ryan Phillippe's character. You think you know who you are? You have no idea. You know, we don't know until you're tested. And so that fascinated me. So I wanted that. So I made somebody particularly heinous, and I put him in a situation where he could be heroic, and he was, because that happens. It's not excusing the heinous behavior. It's not saying, yes, racists are heroic. People love to make these things overly simplistic and accuse me of being overly simplistic. They like to have their answers handed to them. No. Horrible people do great things. Great people do horrible things. We struggle in our lives, you know, and we're handed opportunities. You can do this, you can do this. This is expedient, this will make you $1 billion, or you can do the right thing, which you'll be vilified and everyone will hate you and no one will understand. Which one are you going to do? Oh, I think I'll do this one. Okay, that's a strong person who'll do that. That's the pregnant woman right there. That's what she does. You know, she sacrifices herself and her unborn child to get everybody out of here. That's a hero, you know. So,
perhaps my last question, what have you taken from cinema? What has cinema offered to you?
A life.
What kind of life is that?
A fabulous life. Because even if I'm not making movies, I get to tell stories. I get to sit in my room and I get to play with characters and I get to envision what they're doing in their lives. And if I've lived a dull life, damn it, they can live an interesting one. I get to live through them. What's better than living through fabulous people? Living the life of a villain, living the life of a hero, doing things that you would never be brave enough to do. It makes me braver, I think. I almost got in a fight last week with the big guy. He was being mouthy at an event. And I just stood up and shut the fuck up. Me? Yeah, you, shut the fuck. He didn't take that well. Anyways, he was, I think, a little under the influence, but came to his senses. But yeah, I think it was making me a little braver. But yeah, my characters are what I live for. And I love to live with them.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a great, great pleasure to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you for putting up with me. And thank you.
Paul Haggis.
Thank you.